I watched back in the second half of the Fever and Sparks game, and obviously, like, just the way they lost that game was wild. Like, watching it back, I'm doubling, tripling down on Christie's sides, either being the worst coach or the greatest match fixer of all time. Like, she might be the greatest match fixer of all time. Like, we can't rule that out. If you guys are new to the channel, subscribe. We are less than 100 subscribers away from 4,000. And if we could hit that somehow by the end of today, that would be unbelievable, lads. And I'm not even talking about the subbing Caitlin Clark. The subbing Caitlin Clark for 5 minutes was nuts. But I'm talking about some of the other rotations. They're like taking Boston out of the game for 3 minutes down the stretch when it's like, okay, yeah, she just lost in the game. But there are positives to take into account, because at the end of the day, this team is going to be together for a while. You've got, like, Boston's going nowhere. Clark's going nowhere. So it's all about their players beginning to fit together. And Aaliyah Boston and Caitlin Clark finally started to... They had a half or a game where it's like, okay, this is what we expected. This is what we expected from them. And I was really impressed with how the two of them played together in that second half. Because, and again, I think once Aaliyah Boston, I've said it and I'm like, I don't think their play styles fit together. I still don't think they do, but again, they don't fit well together crazily well. I think with a competent coach, maybe they can. I think maybe they can. And I think they fit way more now that BBALL plays a lot with Boston, rather than them two just rotating in for each other with Smith off the floor. I think a lineup with Boston and Smith at the 4-5 with Caitlin Clark at the 1 is just pointless. But I do think that the rest of the team needs to run, and you can afford to have Aaliyah Boston maybe not running the break, but she looked faster. She looked faster last night. She got there for a couple of offensive boards. She looked more mobile. And if it wasn't for the fact that she just kept getting called for phantom fouls, and Christy Sides is the worst coach ever. She decided to sneak diss her stars on the podium. Caitlin Clark got a T. Aaliyah Boston at the end of the game was talking to the refs. I'm pretty sure she was targeting those two players, maybe just targeting Clark. Either way, saying that our players need to stop talking to refs. It's not like they're Luca complaining every single second, but like they're getting hacked, and then on one end, like they'll get hacked, and on the other end, there will be phantom fouls called. Like two of Aaliyah Boston's fouls, she went nowhere near the player. Caitlin Clark got called for a foul where she did not touch Rickea Jackson. Hit the ball off Rickea Jackson's hands. It would have been a game changer. And Chrissy Sides wouldn't even challenge until Caitlin Clark told her to challenge. Clark didn't even touch her. Like, the refereeing against the Fever is crazy. But that's the thing. If you are the coach, you've got to defend your players. Christy Sides like, let me get the technicals. You don't say a word. You don't say a word. Like, Caitlin Clark literally got almost a Zaza Pachulia, and you stayed silent. Like, other teams' players are putting your players in danger at times, and you want to stay silent and then call out your players for having to do a talking because you won't. Either way, let's just talk about Aaliyah Boston. She was in bad foul trouble last night, and some of it, like a lot of it, not caused by herself. She shot this season. She has shot 6 free throws and had committed 44 fouls. She has committed 44 fouls and shot 6 free throws. And it's not like she's not getting hit inside. Not getting hit all the time and like struggling a little bit, but yesterday was a much better game. The 2 3-pointers, didn't know she had that in her arsenal. And that pick and pop is going to be devastating. It really is. Especially off that double screen set that they run. Off that stagger screen set they run, which doesn't allow the blitz. If they can start running that, going left a bit more effectively, or even going right because Caitlin Clark passes better with her right hand, Aaliyah Boston's ability to pop while BBALL dives off that set can be very tough to guard. And when teams start to pressure Aaliyah Boston on the 3-point line off that, the high-low dump down pass is going to be on. So that's a big thing. Also, as far as rebounding is concerned, Aaliyah Boston offensively got a couple of offensive boards. That's like the reason why she led the league in offensive boards last year. She gets into position well. She's not an Angel Reese level offensive rebounder, but she's a good one. She's a good one, and it just seemed like she had her legs under her last night. It seemed like she's getting more used to the pace of the game. And look, as I've said in other videos, she's not going to make the same mistake twice. It's an easy thing to do, especially when you've probably never not played basketball for as long as that. Like, that's the whole thing when it comes to the WNBA, is there's an 8-month off season. It's possible. It is very, very possible in an 8-month off season to not quite take it as seriously as you should and maybe show up in a little bit worse shape than you should. That can happen. And that happening once, for anyone saying like, oh, it's unacceptable, I think if it happens more than once, it's like you're acting like Jokic didn't show up out of shape. Was it the 2019-20 year? Right before the bubble and lost all the weight in the bubble? Or over lockdown? Jokic just showed up out of shape for a season. Luka showed up out of shape a couple of years ago. Coming off the Olympic... Was it coming off the Olympic year? There was a year where Luka didn't show up in great shape. Like, players have not showed up in the great shape and played their way into shape in the NBA. And then when you have an 8-month offseason, especially when it's your first one, like, it can happen. But there were promising signs, at least, especially if Boston can spread the floor a little bit more. Okay. There's a secondary, like, if we're not able to run the break, running a bit more through Aliyah Boston, getting her to free up Caitlin Clark. Like, there was a really nice play where Aliyah Boston got the offensive board, kicked it to Caitlin Clark, and then sealed Giroux and allowed Caitlin Clark to get a free drive to the basket. She got an offensive rebound off a Clark missed layup. And that's what people were really hoping for when they saw the two of them. Because Caitlin Clark, it's not like with the shots she takes, she has the highest shooting percentage in the world. But it's that, like, okay, maybe Aliyah Boston can clean up. She can clean up a little bit. She can free up Clark. And yesterday she did. And it's funny because the better that Caitlin Clark plays, the more space frees up for Boston and vice versa. And then you just got to figure out the rest of the team. I think you want, even if Bentley ends up going, because going next season, I doubt it, but you just want to find that rim running center and you just want running defenders on the wings. You don't need a Kelsey Mitchell. You really don't need a Kelsey Mitchell. But that's what you really need if you want to keep Aaliyah Boston there. I still think there are better fits. There are much better fits for Caitlin Clark than Aaliyah Boston. But at least yesterday showed not necessarily that like they're the perfect 1-2 combo, because they're not. They're just not. There are much better fits in this league for Caitlin Clark, and there are much better fits than Caitlin Clark for Aaliyah Boston. Don't get it twisted both ways. I don't think either of them. I don't think they're going to win a ring as the number 1 and 2 option. But if they somehow go and get someone who comes in and Aaliyah Boston's the 3rd option, maybe things change. If, to be fair, Aaliyah Boston, if she goes and shows up like she did as a rookie next season, they're going to be dangerous. They're going to be really dangerous. And the more I watch this team, the more I'm like, they have the pieces there. Once they end up getting another coach and they get more used to playing with each other, they're going to be fine. Like, they went 13-27 last year. They're on track to go 5-35 this year. They're not going to go 5-35. They could go 10-30 though. They honestly could go 10-30. And like, they're surprisingly not the worst team in the league. I don't think they are. But you're even seeing it with like, even like the Mercury. The Mercury scored 47 points last night against the Sun. They just had this really tough start. And like, they've ran the Sun close. They've scored against the Sun. And they're the best. They were the best defensive team in the league. So the Sparks, every game the Sparks have had has been close. Losing to the Sparks is not as bad as it seems. They're better than they showed record-wise. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, not the worst performance in the world from the Fever, but a real positive is that Aaliyah Boston and Caitlin Clark look like they started to figure it out a little bit.